Welcome, everybody, back to the Kevin Blakicki YouTube channel. We have some news that dropped earlier today as Pete Alonso is no longer a member of the New York Mets and he signed a 5-year, $155 million deal with the Baltimore Orioles. Now, my initial thoughts are I'm not surprised. This is something that's been looming the last couple of seasons. After the 2024 season, Pete Alonso was a free agent, and we kind of kicked the bucket down the road and didn't give him a long-term contract. Pete Alonso wanted a long-term deal, and no one else in Major League Baseball was going to give it to him. So David Stearns was able to bring him back on a relatively cheap deal. And Pete Alonso in the 2025 season absolutely balled out. He had a great season. He bet on himself and he won. And now he got the long-term deal, or as much of a long-term deal as he was going to get. And he definitely got paid. $155 million over 5 years is no small contract. And I have a number of reactions. I have a number of emotions regarding this situation. Like, on the one hand, I'm not surprised, and on the other hand, I was completely taken aback. I was really surprised with how quickly the news broke, especially after Edwin Diaz and his news broke yesterday of him going to the Dodgers. The fact that these dropped within 2 days, back-to-back days, I don't think I've ever had a worse 2-day stretch as a New York Mets fan. And this will go down as some of the saddest days in Mets history. And I have no idea where this team is going. And I'm sad, I'm upset. I'm also angry. I'm pissed off because every single move that the Mets have made has made this team worse. You trade away Brandon Nimmo, fine. He's an aging player, never really a superstar, not even an all-star in his career. You trade him for a Gold Glove second baseman, so you shore up that defense up the middle. Fine. You get worse offensively, but fine. You get a Gold Glove second baseman who literally just won the Gold Glove. Fine. Okay. Then you get rid of Edwin Diaz, who is the best closer in baseball, and you let him sign with the one team that you've been trying to chase in the Los Angeles Dodgers. You let him go for nothing, and you let him go on a 3-year, $69 million deal, something that you totally could have matched, and you probably should have matched. And then the very next day, you let a franchise player, your all-time leader in home runs, a homegrown player who is beloved by this fan base, and you let him walk for 5 years and $155 million. And you know what the kicker is? They didn't even offer him a goddamn contract. They didn't offer Pete Alonso shit. They didn't offer him anything after all that he has done for this organization. And I understand that this team has struggled a lot the last couple of seasons. They are very inconsistent. This core has done virtually nothing to warrant any success. They've struggled mightily. 2021 they missed the playoffs. 2022 they have an amazing regular season, win over 100 games, and they get bounced in the wild card round at home against the Padres. 2023 massive letdown of a season. They missed the playoffs. 2024 the most magical season I've ever seen in my entire life, the most fun I've ever had as a Mets fan, and they follow it up in 2025 with one of the most embarrassing seasons I've ever witnessed. So you can say that this core has produced nothing, and that would be an accurate statement. But on the other hand, every single player that the Mets are getting rid of to try and improve their team are all the pieces that weren't the issue. Pete Alonso wasn't the issue last season. He had a great year. Edwin Diaz wasn't the issue last season. He had a great year. You got 25 home runs and 92 RBIs out of Brandon Nimmo. He wasn't the problem. The problem with this team was the starting rotation, all the injuries that they had, and just them not being able to go more than 3 or 4 innings in a single start. The bullpen was terrible. Every single day it was like clockwork. You were getting a new notification on your phone of a new random ass Syracuse Mets reliever that was gonna kind of do good, or either do good or do bad, but it didn't matter because his ass was going to be sent on the next bus to Syracuse after the game was over anyway. So it didn't matter what he did. And then you do what everyone thought was a good idea at the time, and bolstering up that bullpen with Gregory Soto and Ryan Helsley at the deadline, and they were terrible. And the hitters that were struggling last season were the 5 through 9 hitters. 1 through 4 wasn't the problem. Lindor, Soto, Alonso, and Nimmo carried your team. If they weren't in the lineup and producing at the level that they were, who knows how bad the Mets could have been? They could have been a 100-loss team if those guys weren't on the field. Juan Soto probably had the best season of his career last season. And he's able to opt out of his contract after 2029, and his ass is going to be gone. He's not staying. He's not going to live out that 15-year contract. Why would he? We're getting rid of all of our good players, all of the players that have been here the longest, and we're treating them like shit on the way out. We're short. We're giving a half-assed deal to Edwin Diaz. We're short-staffing him there. You're not even gonna give Pete Alonso a contract offer. You're not gonna even try and get him for like 3 years. I understand 5 years is a big commitment, especially when you have the almost inevitable at this point lockout at the end of this season. At the end of the season coming up. And it's a lot of money that you're tying up. And he's going to regress. The metrics say that he's a bad defensive first baseman. I see him, making a lot of picks at first base. Sure, he can't make an underhand throw to a pitcher to save his life, but I don't think he's terrible. And then you offer Kyle Schwarber like a 3-year, $120 million contract. Why? He's a DH. That doesn't even fix the issue of letting go of Pete Alonso. And not to mention the fact that they also insulted Edwin Diaz by signing Devin Williams and not letting Edwin Diaz know ahead of time and not make it clear that Edwin Diaz was a part of the future and that they wanted to keep him. So it seemed like when Devin Williams was announced that he got signed by the Mets, Edwin Diaz found out too. And it looked like he was his replacement, and that's when he was gone. And another thing, we have to talk about a consistent issue with this Mets clubhouse and locker room. If you watch my podcast, The Kevin Mulkicki Show, I mentioned it. It was either last week, the week before, or a couple episodes ago. I was talking about there being an issue in the Mets locker room. It was after Brandon Nimmo got traded that the reports came out that there was still issues between Jeff McNeil and Francisco Lindor, which have been there for years, and that there was also a rift between Francisco Lindor and Juan Soto because Juan Soto's more businesslike and Francisco Lindor is more laid back and relaxed and more into fashion or whatever. But we have to start thinking about that there might be a deeper issue with this Mets clubhouse, because how many players have we thought were going to stay with this team for the rest of their career, only to find out that they never even wanted to stay with this team in the first place? We got to go all the way back to Jacob deGrom. Jacob deGrom, one of the best pitchers I have ever seen in my lifetime. And he unfortunately was very injury prone. So there was some hesitation to give him a big long-term contract. Long story short, he ends up going to Texas. All right, we're parting ways. Jacob deGrom is like, I guess, kind of like conservative. He likes being a cowboy, loves, going on the farm or whatever. So Texas was a good fit for him. All right, okay, New York wasn't for him. Fine, whatever. But then it doesn't stop there. You also have Brandon Nimmo waiving his no trade clause to go to Texas. Okay, another kind of conservative guy, grew up in Wyoming. Fine, country, Bible thumping, conservative, whatever. Fine. He goes as well. Now Edwin Diaz doesn't want to be a part of this team. And, he takes a relatively cheap and short deal to go to LA because he doesn't want to be in New York anymore. And now Pete Alonso, I mean, we thought, we see the double bubble bucket on top of his head when he hits a walk-off. We see him shirtless. We see the LFGM. I was convinced that Pete Alonso loved the city of New York and loved being a New York Met and wanted to spend the rest of his career here. And I could not have been more wrong. He does not love the city. He does not love this team, and he didn't want to be here. And he proved it last year by kicking the bucket down the road and thinking that he was going to get a better deal somewhere else. And the only reason why he's re-signed with the Mets was because he wanted a job and the Mets were the only team willing to give him a contract. Now, he had an opt-out. He made sure that he had an opt-out after this most recent season so he could test free agency again. He would not be testing free agency 2 times in 2 years if he wanted to be here. And it keeps happening. We keep having these franchise players wanting to leave New York and leave the Mets. And we have to figure out what the hell is going on and why it keeps happening. Because everyone's saying, anyone who's possibly trying to spin this in a positive light is like, okay, well, there's still other free agents. There's still Kyle Tucker. There's still Cody Bellinger. Maybe you trade for Tatis. Maybe you sign Bregman. Maybe you trade for Skubal. Maybe you get Valdez. Maybe you trade for Trevor McGill, Tyler's better brother. There's still options out there, but if you're a free agent or you're trying to there's two ways that they're going to get players. They're going to either sign them or trade for them. Now, if you got like Cody Bellinger or Bregman or Tucker or any of the hitters or any of the pitchers on top of that, then it becomes more of a sexy destination. If you re-sign Edwin Diaz and you get Devin Williams, okay, now you're talking. You keep Pete Alonso and maybe you get Kyle Schwarber to be the DH. Okay, now maybe we're cooking. You have Simeon at second base to lock down defensively. Go get Bregman. Oh, okay. And now we have an opening in left field. Maybe you get Kyle Tucker, Cody Bellinger. Maybe you put Bellinger in center, put Kyle Tucker there. Okay, now we got Lindor, Alonso, Simeon, Soto, Bellinger, Tucker. Now we got a lineup. Okay. Now you're seeing these lifelong Mets just get discarded by this team. People aren't going to want to sign here. This isn't an attractive place. The entire Mets fan base has pitchforks out calling for David Stearns to be fired. No one likes David Stearns. I am not trying to make light of a tragedy, and I promise you I'm not making a joke when I say this. David Stearns is quite literally the most hated man in New York City since Osama bin Laden. And I'm not joking. I'm not trying to make light of that situation. I'm not trying to make a joke. Osama bin Laden is hated by New Yorkers, and now so is David Stearns. And I haven't seen this hatred for David Stearns since that moment 24 years ago. And this is where we're at. And I'm not trying to threaten David Stearns in any way. But hey, buddy, look over your shoulder because Mets fans are not happy. And what makes all of this even worse is that Steve Cohen asked us to show up. He asked for our help. And we did. We set records. We set an attendance record even when this team was struggling, even when this team couldn't win a series against teams like the Nationals and the Marlins. We were still out there at Citi Field. We were still showing up. And after the season, Steve Cohen puts out a tweet and says, "Hey, everybody, I'm sorry. It's not the season that we wanted. It's a disappointment. We'll do better and stuff." And this is the off season that we have after that. This was supposed to be an FU to the entire baseball world. We were supposed to go scorched earth. We were going to retain Alonso and Diaz. We were going to get everybody and do everything in our power to win a World Series specifically this year because we know that lockout is looming. We know that a salary cap could possibly be implemented. This it could be the last year that Steve Cohen has the ability to put his dick on the table and just say, "I have more money than God," and just do that. And get whatever he wants. And I'm so sick and tired of David Stearns having this kind of, this Midwestern small market philosophy when it comes to running an organization. This isn't the Milwaukee Brewers, my friend. You have Steve Cohen's money. You just signed Juan Soto to a 15-year deal worth almost $800 million just a year ago. And now all of a sudden you're penny pinching with the best closer in baseball, and you're not even going to offer a deal to Pete Alonso? I mean, this is just absolutely insane. And I'm looking on Twitter and I'm seeing, a bunch of, people doing the whole LOL Mets thing. The Mets are going to Met. And, it is true. We are always going to be a joke. But I don't need other people's sympathy and empathy. And I don't need them to feel bad for us. But I don't understand the hate that comes with the Mets. I really don't. I mean, we boo our own players, but that's only when they're not doing their job and they're not performing up to their expectations. If you're good, we cheer you. If you're bad, you get booed. I feel like that's pretty straightforward. I feel like that happens with a lot of teams. I don't this has been just ever since I've been a Mets fan. It's been like 20 years of just getting punched in the balls year in and year out. And I don't know what to do now. I don't know what to do. I don't know the future of this organization. Are they going to go scorched earth and try and get everyone? How are you going to do that? How are you going to try and sign free agents when everyone wants to leave? The Mets, not only the PR, but apparently whatever's going on in that locker room is pushing people away. That is not any, that's not a good way to get people to want to sign with your organization. Or is this the fact that they're not going to publicly say it, but they're kind of conceding to the Dodgers and they're kind of cutting payroll and they don't want to have a whole lot of money tied up when it comes that there might be a lockout at the end of this season? I don't know. But all I can tell you is that with every notification that I get on my phone from Jeff Passan regarding the Mets, every single time the Mets have gotten worse. There hasn't been a single notification that I got in which the Mets were a better team. And that includes Devin Williams, because Devin Williams is coming off the worst season of his career. And it's not going to be fair. I don't think it's necessarily right, but it could happen where in light of Devin Williams, getting signed to replace Edwin Diaz, I think that Devin Williams could get booed by the Mets fans, whatever Mets fans are going to show up on opening day. I think that he could get booed before he even throws a pitch as a New York Met because of what this all signifies. No one is happy that Devin Williams is the closer of the Mets. He was supposed to be the setup man to Edwin Diaz. And while we're on the topic of having people show up on opening day, if this continues and the Mets aren't able to have a great offseason, I implore people to stay home because they asked us to show up and show out last year amongst the team playing some of its most disappointing baseball in a long time against teams that they definitely should have beaten. And we did. And I would implore people to not show up and not support this team. And they better damn well not raise those ticket prices. You're going to get rid of everybody. You're going to spit in our face. You're going to rip away all the players that we love. And you have the audacity to raise ticket prices. And oh my God, I just thought of another thing to be mad at. Hey, Uncle Steve Cohen, he's not out of the wind in this. He's got a lot of blame on his shoulders as well. Because when it was the Wilpon era, I remember it fondly. It's what I grew up in. We knew that we were never going to be in on the top free agents. We were never going to sign those major blockbuster deals. I was never going to get that notification that we got this insane player in his prime. That's what made the Juan Soto deal so special, is because we knew that it was unprecedented for this franchise to have a player of that magnitude sign with us, especially being stripped from the Yankees. So we knew what we were getting into in the Wilpon era. We were lied to, and we were sold a bill of goods that Steve Cohen was going to bring us a world championship within the first 5 years of him owning the team. Those were his words, not ours. And since he owned the team, since he's began owning the team in 2021, we missed the playoffs in 21, made the playoffs in 22, had an amazing regular season, won over 100 games, lost in the wild card round, immediately to the San Diego Padres. Then in 23, we missed the playoffs. 24, we had the magical run all the way to the NLCS, outperformed everyone's expectations, which were low because of the terrible season we had in 2023. And then 2024, people were excited. And then you get Juan Soto after going to the NLDS. There's all this hype going around the team. And it all ends up in just the most heartbreaking and embarrassing way. You know, the season ending in Miami when all you had to do was win and you get in. So Steve Cohen is not this untouchable guy that he was when he first bought the team. We thought that we were being in real time lifted out of poverty by this billionaire god who just happened to have more money than anyone on the planet and was going to save us. And we're like, no, he's different than all the other billionaires. He's a good billionaire. He's going to save us. He's going to bring us championships. And all he's done is lie to us. And all he's done is embarrass this franchise and this fan base year after year after year. And he is no different than the Wilpons. Getting rid of beloved players is Wilpon 101, except for David Wright. You got to give him credit for keeping David Wright his entire career. But just this is an all-time low as a Mets fan. I'm so upset that Pete Alonso is no longer a member of the Mets. I'm going to remember him fondly, whether it be him really tearing it up in his rookie season before coming home to Citi Field. There's a Snapchat memory. I swear to God, there's a Snapchat memory on my phone after his like first week or so, the first road trip. I'm like, oh, he's going to win the 2019 Rookie of the Year. And he did. And not only that, he set the rookie record for home runs in the season with 53. And then he had the home run derbies, one of them being wearing the number 44, which was Hank Aaron's number when he played for the Braves. And a Met won a home run derby wearing a Braves player's number. And that was awesome. And him, we were all crapping on him, unfortunately, before that wild card game against the Brewers in 24. And I'll always remember that home run that he hit. I've seen that video dozens and dozens of times, maybe 50 times at this point. I've listened to the national broadcast. I've listened to Howie Rose's call on WFAN. I've heard the Japanese version. I've heard the Chinese version. I've heard the Spanish version. I've heard every single type of announcer in every language that you could possibly imagine that was available for that home run call. I just today saw the Citi Field watch party reaction to him hitting that home run. Of course, the popcorn flying in the sky. That was an amazing moment I'll never forget. And that whole 24 run, seeing Brandon Nimmo cry, tears of joy, hugging his teammates, Lindor tearing up, being down there with his family, Edwin Diaz striking out Kyle Schwarber and kind of having a muted celebration because he had previously injured himself at the World Baseball Classic while he was celebrating with his Puerto Rican teammates. There's been so many fond memories of Pete Alonso in a Mets uniform. I want to thank him for his tenure with the Mets. I am disappointed that he doesn't love this franchise as much as we love him. I wish him nothing but the best in Baltimore and hope he has a long and successful career and that the contract ages well. I wish that it was with the Mets, but it wasn't meant to be, and this organization will forever and always be incompetent. But that does it for this video. I wasn't planning on it being a half-hour rant, but that's kind of just how it ended up being. Thank you if you listened and paid attention and watched till the end of this video. If you want to follow me on social media, follow me everywhere at Kevin Blakicki. If you like this video, make sure you hit the thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you hit the notification bell so you know when I post. And I'll see you next time.